Welcome back to the All In Kosciuszko podcast, where we explore the people, ideas, and partnerships shaping the future of our county and beyond. I'm your host, Matt Duell. Today's episode takes us into the heart of something big. For the first time ever, leaders from the orthopedic industry, top research universities, and local communities came together right here in Kosciuszko County at an event called FrameWORX, hosted by BioCrossroads and OrthoWorx to talk about the future of musculoskeletal health and medical technology. Now, Warsaw is known as the orthopedic capital of the world, but what happens when that legacy begins to ripple outward? What if the innovation happening here could fuel statewide collaboration and bring lasting impact to both our local economy and the health of people everywhere? Joining us in the studio are three incredible voices at the center of this movement. Dr. Melissa Kacena, Director of the Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health at IU School of Medicine. Dr. Emmy Krakow, Executive Director of Catalyst Corridor at Grace College. And Ryan Christner, CEO of OrthoWorx. We'll talk about the momentum that's building, how groundbreaking research and real-life needs are intersecting, and how an exciting opportunity, potentially involving $160 million in national investment, could change the game for Indiana's MedTech future, and how that impact will be felt right here in Kosciuszko County. So let's dive in. All right, Melissa, let's start with you. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today. Take some time. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the work you're doing, and what is the Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health?
Well, thank you for having me, Matt. So I'm Melissa Kacena. I'm the director of the Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health, and this is a great thing that the dean at the School of Medicine about 8 years ago decided to put together. And we recognized that we had a lot of musculoskeletal research talent at IU. But we knew that it wasn't just at IU, and we're all better if we work together. We already were working with people at Purdue and Notre Dame, and we said, well, what if we make this a broad, multi-institutional thing? It is supported by the School of Medicine, but we're all better if we work together. And so he had the vision to put this together, and we started developing it. I was on the group that made the original white paper and recruited our first director, Linda Bonewald, who is just so preeminent in the field. And now I'm the second director of the center as she decided to step down. And I'm very excited about the direction we're going. I think that the president of IU is very interested in developing private-public partnerships, and to really succeed has a vision about academia and industry working together. And that's part of why we have IU Lab. That's been a recent initiative, and we're just trying to figure out all the great ways we can synergize and leverage these great assets and resources to do great things. And that's what I'm trying to lean into as a director.
Excellent. I love that. And so those partnerships that you're talking about are a big reason that you're here with us today. And yesterday there was an event at Grace College. Emmy, FrameWORX was hosted by you all. Tell us a little bit about that event, what it was and how yesterday went.
Well, it was a really fun day. We hosted the FrameWORX event at the MOCC. And FrameWORX is a program that's actually hosted by BioCrossroads down in Indianapolis. And they have a quarterly series of these FrameWORX events, which are really geared at building connections, right, from industry, academia, some of what Melissa was talking about. And they've been doing that down in Indianapolis for many years, very successfully. But this was the first time that they had a FrameWORX event outside of Indianapolis. And it was just a wonderful opportunity. And the goal was to kind of highlight the orthopedic industry. So where better to do that than the orthopedic capital of the world? And the MOCC facility was just a perfect venue to host researchers from Indianapolis, certainly our orthopedic industry community here in Warsaw and Kosciuszko County, but also a lot of healthcare professionals from around the state and even the region. We had a scientific poster session with about 40 posters. I think we even had some from California and New York.
Colorado
scientists.
was one of the winners.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So it was a wonderful event. We had some industry tours in the morning for visitors to get to really have some direct engagement with our orthopedic industry and see the capabilities and the facilities that we have here and what makes Warsaw the orthopedic capital of the world. So
Excellent.
It was a great day.
Very good. Very good. So Ryan, coming out of yesterday, I mean, what's the energy you're sensing with our orthopedic partners?
Yeah, the energy was good. I think the exciting thing was I don't think we've hosted an event kind of like this before in the past. And so a lot of folks were saying, this is great. And how do we do more of this? How do we do more of collaborating with academia, research, industry, workforce development, conversations happening? It was good to get these conversations happening out. And at one point, I just sat back and watched the natural collisions that happened and conversations that were going on in the intermissions before and after the event. And you could tell that we sparked some curiosity in a lot of folks.
That's great. That's great. So as we've talked about many times, with All in Kosciuszko, we're seeing a lot of that energy, that momentum, that collaboration. So when we think about just academic leaders, industry leaders coming together like never before, why is that happening now? What do we feel like is the shift that's taking place?
Yeah, I think, opportunities like Melissa's brought a lot of folks together. We've had kind of a lot of maybe even local and regional focus and our ecosystems working well. And now we're starting to collaborate at an even larger scale, and we're collaborating across the state. We're bringing people together from all the different universities, Grace College, OrthoWorx, BioCrossroads, and all these groups have been doing some great work for many, many years. And now is a prime time for us to start working together in a different fashion than what we have in the past. And everybody's just leaning in a little bit more. And, we're all biased. We're Hoosiers. We have a feeling that, Indiana has a lot of things to offer, and this is just doubling down on what we have to offer to the nation and to the world.
That's great. Ladies, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I might extend what Ryan said just a little bit and say I think that some of our key leaders across the different institutions really see that the future is working together. The future is taking the best talent and resources that the one group has and applying that with the different talent and resources that the other group has, because nobody can be perfect at everything. So if we can take the great things we have to offer and combine it with the great things somebody else, then 1 + 1 is going to equal 3. And that's what it's all about, is trying to figure out how you do that. Gotta be careful, don't step on too many toes and so forth, but I think you can do that. I mean, almost every time in life you can figure out a win-win opportunity.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So there's a piece that kind of sits at the center of all this, an exciting opportunity that you are working through. So Melissa, share with us, and I'll have all of you unpack it a little bit, the National Science Foundation grant that has currently been applied for, $160 million. That's a big deal. There's a lot of impact that can happen there. Unpack that for us. What is that grant all about?
Yeah, so I was so excited when I saw the opportunity, a little intimidated, I'll be quite honest. My postdoc, I said, I have all these great ideas. I think we can do some great things. I want to try to find a grant that would fit this mechanism. And my postdoc sent me 2 different RFPs. One was for about a $1.2 million grant, and one was for this $160 million grant. And I looked at 160 and I was like, whew, I don't know if I can ever do that. And then I looked at the 1.2 and I go, oh, that's too small. I can't do what I want. I had honestly thought I wanted something in between, but I started reading. 160 seems overwhelming, but I started reading what they were asking for. And they said you had to have a regional competitive advantage. And the second I started thinking about that and what we have here in Indiana, I was like, we have this in spades. And so I knew that, okay, we have the orthopedic capital of the world just 2 hours north of Indianapolis, which is where I am. But as I said at the beginning, my center is not just IU. We have Marion, Ball State, Notre Dame, Purdue, IU, and anybody else who's an academic researcher in the musculoskeletal area. And just a mile away from us is Eli Lilly, and they developed the first osteoporosis bone-forming drug. And they're interested in muscle regeneration and therapies. And so I was like, we have the pharmaceutical side, we have the orthopedic MedTech side, and we have the academic research side, and then we have BioCrossroads with great life sciences. But we don't all work together and connect, and that's the missing secret sauce. And that's what this grant would provide us. It would give us the resources to put the infrastructure, both the team building, the ecosystem building. We have the separate ecosystems. We just need to pull it all together so we can all work collaboratively. We can align. We can figure out what are the next big things that we can all work on and tackle together. Yeah. And so that's what I'm really excited about, is because I think that we have all the pieces and it's just pulling it together.
Excellent. Excellent. So building bridges across our communities to collaborate even further.
And really importantly, I mean, it will help with the economy of all of us. It'll help with reshoring and preventing offshoring. So I think, that's really important in the manufacturing sector in particular, is we need to make sure that we bring in more groups, but we don't want to lose any of the valuable groups that have really started, the growth and the development. The history here is just amazing, and we don't want that to go away. So we need to figure out, how do we protect, but how do we invite? And so I think that that's, a lot of the great opportunities that this will be. And I don't want to be the Silicon Valley of musculoskeletal health, but I kind of do. I want Indianapolis to be the place that venture capital, everybody comes to. If you have a great innovative idea for musculoskeletal health, you want to come here because we have the resources, the connections, the people who can make that a reality.
Yes.
And we want to transform the field. We don't want to just make incremental changes, but we want to transform. And that's really what I think we can do if we're given this opportunity.
Yeah. That's exciting. So, Emmy, talk to us about what this could mean for us here in Kosciuszko County.
Absolutely. Well, I think the role that Grace could play in this engine idea is around supporting the workforce development, the talent development here locally to support the orthopedic industry. So, I think it's not just about attracting talent, but retaining talent, developing talent. We want to have people that are driving the orthopedic industry for generations to come. And part of the vision of the grant is kind of building that talent and workforce development pipeline. And that's what we can do locally, right? Because we have a great orthopedic industry here, and we want to sustain that for future generations and continue to build on that. So that's an important piece of it. And I think the other piece is kind of around innovation. And certainly one of our projects in the Catalyst Corridor and the ORI initiative is to build an orthopedic innovation research center here in Warsaw. That will kind of bring that ecosystem together of K through 12 education, higher education, technical education with the orthopedic industry, as well as some of the kind of innovation startup. So some of the plug and play, collaboration opportunities for students to get involved in those kind of innovation projects.
Very good. Very good. Great. So I know these grants kind of have a life cycle. Where are we at in the grant process right now?
Yeah, it's hard to think back that we just started this in April of last year. So we're just about 15 months in. We were announced as a semifinalist just a month ago. At the end of July, we had our semifinals. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it went really well. So we're just awaiting news of who are the finalists that go forward. And we think early October, we might hear something along those lines. And so we're just full steam ahead right now, working to shore up everything and make sure that we're as competitive as possible because, I'm biased, but I think that we will do amazing things if we have this opportunity. And so I think that hopefully they'll see that too.
Yeah. Well, what I love about this and this conversation, I get the sense that obviously this grant would be like rocket fuel, right? In terms of these ideas and bridging these things. But I also get the sense that we're talking partnerships that are going to happen no matter what, right?
I think you're right, but I think it'll be at a smaller scale.
Yeah.
So if we want to be able to predict who will, I think it's more like a startup. So they would just be the seed funding that would allow us to accelerate, like you said, the fuel, right? And so I think that is a key component, and we will do things. But I think that if we can, there's some infrastructure that's missing, and I'm not sure that any one group is going to do it, and I don't know how it's going to come together if you don't have a mechanism like this to help start it.
Okay.
So I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we will do stuff maybe at a slightly different, at a different level. And I think that if we get this though, then we're going to be predicting and preventing osteoporosis and osteoarthritis, not just treating all of these things. So I think that we can still do great things.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we can get that super transformative nature that I really envision and hope we can do.
Okay.
But again,
Okay.
I might be wrong.
Okay. No. I love it. So let's dream big a little bit. Let's talk innovation. What kind of problems do we think could be solved through this collaboration? Any examples where you could connect research to real life?
So one of the things I think I'm the most excited about is, again, it's the prediction component. I think AI is part of the reason why it's the why now, is we have the opportunity to transform if we use it and we use it in the right way. So Regan Streif based in Indianapolis, but it is a collective across the state of Indiana. All electronic health records from any of the healthcare providers can be deposited. Not everybody does, but it can be deposited. And that is one of the things that we want to expand on, because right now, IU Health is our big, organized structure, and several of the other hospitals across the state do deposit, but a lot of our orthopedic private groups do not. And so we're missing a lot of key important information because they are not the biggest provider of orthopedics. They are a big provider, but there are many across the state. And orthopedic information is really critical. If we want to try to predict who's going to go on to have osteoarthritis, we need to have those records. Now, another key thing that we're missing is we're missing the imaging, and that's really hard. It's expensive. It takes a big PAC system database to pull in all that imaging, and you have to de-identify it because of the patient information. But if we can pull in this huge database, and it won't be just for us, we would open it up so that anybody across the world can utilize it in an appropriate manner, of course. And we will then be able to try to figure out who's going to need that hip replacement. Are there predictors about your genetics? Are there predictors about, different diseases you had earlier or different drugs you might have been on? And so you might need to do X or Y to help with this and have a healthier lifespan. And right now, it's not just about the lifespan, it's about the health span. And the musculoskeletal health is so critical in everything we do. And if you can be healthy on the musculoskeletal side, that just leads to better health as far as diabetes, cancer, all the heart, everything. So it's really, really a critical component.
Yeah, excellent. So, Emmy, I know there's an orthopedic startup who is innovating, creating some new things that has partnered with Grace. Again, just help us understand that a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. So it's been a great collaboration between the Grace Engineering program and one of the startup companies that came through the Plug and Play program a couple years ago. So LifeJoint. So the CEO, Marcia Hart, got connected with Fred Wentorf, who is the leader of the mechanical engineering program at Grace. And through that connection, they started to collaborate on some of the research challenges that LifeJoint was trying to solve, and working with the Grace Engineering students on solving some of those some of those innovation problems. And it's just been a wonderful collaboration for the students, for LifeJoint, and they recently received an award from the RE Innovation Voucher Program to continue that research. So that's just one example of the kinds of collaborations and partnerships and innovation that we can impact.
Yeah. And I think LifeJoint's a great example of an organization that's really launched out of some use-inspired research, which is something I know you're passionate about, Melissa. So talk to me about just what does that mean? How does that change the way that we're creating solutions?
Yeah, so I actually have an engineering background, even though I'm in orthopedics as my primary focus. And a lot of my colleagues, they develop something, but they haven't actually even talked to the end user. And so I've seen that many times. They develop this thing that's so great, but the surgeon will never use it because it's not practical, and they never had that early conversation. And I think that it's great to innovate, but it has to have a reason. And so it needs to be use-inspired, whether it's something that the patient needs, whether the doctor or the surgeon needs, whether the industry partner needs, whether the student needs. I think anything we do should start from that. Why do we need it? And, will somebody actually use it? You don't need to build something if nobody's going to use it, or you can build something, but then it's not relevant. It won't help with the economy. It won't help with any of this. And so it really comes from that idea and basis. And so we need to start early talking to the right people, going out to the community, talking to the patients, talking to the surgeons, talking to the industry partners, and saying, what is it that keeps you awake at night? How can we help? And then we'll try to put the pieces together and the partners together with those expertise. And that's really what our engine is about. That is what I see happening. And so we can do some things that are incremental, but if that change in a brace or that change in an implant design for the orthopedic surgeon knows that this is a better way to do it, but they don't have the knowledge or the skill set, they don't have the business background, they don't have the engineering. They just know, okay, when I put this implant into this patient, I can see I really need it to go over there, but it's not designed that way. Or I need this other piece to go this way. And so they can see it, but then they don't know what to do. We're going to make it so that that surgeon can actually go through, can get connected right with the right engineer up here in Warsaw. I mean, I have an example of somebody, I guess I'll call it preliminary data for the grant, but if we put this idea of how this could work, we need to prove that it actually does work. I mean, as a scientist, that's what I do. You come up with a hypothesis, but then you need to test it and prove that it will work. And so that's what we did, is one of our surgeons had an idea about an implant design, and he didn't have engineers, he didn't have FDA regulatory experience, he didn't have lawyers and patent, he didn't have any of these things. And so he, with our help, thanks to a lot of you all, found the connections here in Warsaw. And he found an engineering group, contract engineers that had had some experience and successes and with other, devices. He found them because of the connections. He found the FDA regulatory people. He found the patent lawyer. And now for a little piece of the, a piece of the pie, everybody is putting sweat equity into it. And compared to when he first had the idea and went to a big company here in town, they said $3 million, 3 years is what it would take to do this. Not really interested. It's a great idea. We think it would be important, but not sure how to do it.
Okay.
Go down the street. Went down the street. They said, $2 million, 2 years, and you'll have to be in our queue. And he's like, there's got to be better. And so that's why we developed this one pathway. It's not the whole pathway. Everybody's journey will be different in innovation and commercialization. But one pathway that we're going to provide for people is if you don't have the big pocketbook and you don't have the big opportunity and you have maybe a little bit more time or not, you could try it this way.
Sure.
And the great thing is it's not done yet, but they are hoping that by September that they will be submitting for FDA, 510K classification.
Wow.
And it will have taken a sixth of the cost, a third of the time. And I think it's been actually very well de-risked because there were a lot of people that came in with their expertise from across the ecosystem. And again, this was something we were testing. We had a whole bunch of surgeons, podiatrists, all the different, specialists that might see it. We had marketing people, we had distributors, we asked the business people, we asked a whole bunch of people, and early on and often to refine and figure out, can we do better and innovate faster, cheaper, and more chance of success. And so that's something I think is a very specific example, but hopefully can be the reality for anyone who's interested.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you both. Great examples of just practical things and ways that these collaborations and this ecosystem can come together in an exciting way. So Ryan, from the OrthoWorx seat, how do you all take some of these ideas and just help pull them together and just turn them into real momentum for some of our partners and companies?
Yeah, I mean, both of those stories are just like the music to my ears. That's what we have here with 130 years of orthopedic experience and expertise. We've got 5 generations of people within this community that have been continually leaning into orthopedics. That's how stories like this happen. And the expertise that we have here is like no other. I would say that we set the standard, and through all of this, we're being looked at as the subject matter experts. And I think as people are going into work daily and doing the work daily, you don't take that opportunity to step back and say, what are we doing as often as we should? And then situations like this where we're all coming together and we're being looked at across the state as a leader, but across the country as a leader, and even across the globe as a leader. I mean, we've got opportunities coming for companies that want to come to Indiana to do research and development and R&D, and there's a reason why, and it's because we're great at what we do. And so, you hear the term humble Hoosiers and all that type of stuff. I think it's good for us to step back and appreciate what we've done, but also take it all in. And how do we double down on that? How do we dream? We've been dreaming pretty big for a long time, but how do we dream bigger? And I think that's the spirit of kind of this collaboration through the engine, is we're looking to really dream a lot bigger than we have in the past.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so with that, and Melissa, to your point, with this grant, it allows us to take big swings, like you're talking about, just doubling down bigger than ever. You mentioned a little bit earlier, but any other breakthroughs, big ideas, big things that you all are looking at and saying, this could happen?
Well, I think you're going to have smart implants, right? So they're already starting, but I think it's going to go up a notch. It's going to detect the infection before the patient realizes it or the blood work tells you, because it takes a little bit of time to go from the site to the circulation where you're going to detect it in the blood. I think you're going to have, AI is going to do a lot, like I said, about the electronic health records and connecting the dots that we don't see as far as, how we can prevent or predict and then prevent. We have a lot of good therapies for osteoporosis. But if we, most of the time it's too late, they fracture, and then that's when we know that they had the osteoporosis. So if we could figure it out when they're 25, you're likely to have osteoporosis. Maybe they'll be screening earlier so that they can get on the medicine, at an earlier time point, et cetera. So I think that there's a lot of great things there. And I think that there's going to be innovations in process. We're going to make it easier and more efficient and cheaper for the manufacturing industry. Even delivering the great orthopedic implants to the hospitals. I mean, we're going to the standing surgery centers. It's not all in a hospital setting where they can have all the different instrumentation kits. And so there's going to be some need for some slightly different processes. And so those are areas we can all work together. And again, there's different people who have, the expertise across the space. And we'll be eventually 3D printing bone pieces that fit the actual segment of bone that was lost, or the muscle that is lost if there's a bad car accident, so that it can help with regrowth. It won't just be, a metal implant. We'll have these other biologic opportunities going forward.
Amazing. Okay, so you floated some ideas around co-design curriculum and joint graduate programs. I'd love to hear from you both. What would that look like? How would that shape the next generation of talent?
Well, so part of it was actually in conversations. I was up here with one of the plug and play events a few months back. And as I said, it's use inspired. So part of it is listening to what people need. And so I asked some small people with 3 to 5 person startups, and I asked big companies like Zimmer, Biomet, like, what do you need as far as your workforce? How can we help? And obviously upskilling and reskilling is going to be a huge thing. I mean, there's so much going on in robotics and computer science and data analytics that maybe some people don't have those skills currently, and we don't want them to be left behind. And so, there's going to be a need to work with Grace and to work with Ivy Tech and to work with all the partners to figure out how do we meet that need and that demand. And I think that's part of what the engine can do. But I've also heard a lot of people say it would be great if we had a program where we have an internship program or a master's degree where they can get the musculoskeletal orthopedic injury education that we have. We have a PhD program in the ICMH that is focused on musculoskeletal health. But we don't have all the entrepreneurial components, the data science, the machine learning, all those elements that they might want to have, or the engineering component. It sounds a little bit like some of the programs you're doing more on your MBA side, but this is a little bit different focus. So more on the engineering and the data analytics and the AI component, but also with the orthopedic element. And it resonated that they liked the idea of having their people not just know computer science or not just know biomedical engineering, but to also understand the orthopedic disease that these implants and this MedTech might help. And so merging those ideas and then having some type of an internship program where there's some coursework and some internship program, there might be some great opportunities and synergies. I mean, we don't want to develop a course that nobody attends. That wouldn't help us.
Yeah.
We want to develop something that, helps, again, the end user, and that's the companies. And so thinking forward about what they need in the future and how can we, do something that will help is really what we'd like to do.
Yeah. So, how do you see Grace College, our friends at Ivy Tech, even our local high schools playing a role in some of that?
Well, I think that's the beauty of sort of this connection that's happened through the NSF grant, connecting with Melissa and her center, the Orthopedic Innovation Research Center that we kind of envisioned as part of the Catalyst Corridor and ORI initiative was really kind of a piece of what Melissa was just describing, right? Some of that kind of tailored curriculum, talent, and workforce development integrated in with kind of that use case mindset of partnering with the orthopedic industry. From an engineering perspective, from a computer science perspective, yes, not in an abstract sort of way, but in a very much a real world way that's kind of connected to orthopedics. So I think the beauty of the NSF grant is that we can kind of expand that where it's, we have a hub here in Warsaw and here in Kosciuszko County. We have that connectivity with the industry. but to be able to connect with a bigger ecosystem of the work that Melissa and her team are doing down in Indianapolis, what's happening at Purdue, Notre Dame, and really just expand those connections. And there's probably other ways to collaborate and benefit just from the skills, the knowledge, the expertise, the capabilities that we have across the state, and really kind of connect that into the vision that we already have for what we want to do here in Warsaw.
And if I might just add one thing, I mean, Emmy talked about all these different opportunities across the state. There are a lot of programs. And if we can infuse a little bit more to all these programs, then so many more people can be assisted and can learn about the great opportunities. And I have to admit, like, my students were so excited about coming to the conference yesterday. And I've already had a ton of emails and texts from my students saying that they learned so much. They didn't know everything about what it was like up here in Warsaw. They were so impressed. And so I think that, again, it will just feed, the excitement and the interest and hopefully the workforce, that is really needed up here. And so I do think that that's the great thing about all of this is we can all help each other out, and the high tide lifts all boats.
Absolutely. No, very exciting. So Ryan, how do you see this effort connecting with our local students here in Kosciuszko County? What are the maybe students that are out there that they don't even know about these career paths that exist? How are you connecting with that?
Yeah, good question. We already have one of our main pillars is talent development, and we've got a great effort going towards that of career discovery and just sparking the interest of young adults and even our children of STEM education and just thinking a little bit differently about education than we have in the past. And we've had some great programs. I think, specifically Warsaw's got four elementary schools now that are STEM certified.
Yeah.
And that's a great opportunity. But the other part that we're hearing is the voice of the industry. So in the past, we've been focusing a lot of our efforts on machinists and the production and the manufacturing side of things, manufacturing engineers, biomedical engineers, and things like that. A new one that's rising up and looking into the future, as Melissa mentioned, with the smart implants and all that type of stuff. We need some digital engineers as well. And so we're trying to get out in front of where we feel like the industry is going, where do we feel like the medicine is going, and how can we help develop those types of careers and just be the spark to connect a kid with the future and let the ecosystem kind of take it from there.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so as we wrap up our time here, let's look forward. Let's imagine it's 2029. What does success look like for us? If we think about a thriving MedTech ecosystem around the state, what does that success look like?
4 years is not a lot of time to see a lot of the great things it's going to take. So I'm a realist, but an optimist.
Yes,
okay,
that's great.
And so if I use my, I have to believe I can deliver, in 4 years.
Yeah.
And so 4 years, I think we're going to be setting the groundwork on a lot of things. Okay, that are going to be amazing and so forth. And I think we'll have already gotten several startups started, just like the one I just told you about. I mean, that's a new startup that started after the NSF engine started, just in these discussions. We don't have the engine yet. It's just, an application at this point. But, that is a brand new startup that wasn't here before. They actually have a portfolio now of 10 to 15 different ideas. But honestly, some of the ideas that the first group, I've been attending their meetings just so that I can pull it in, and I'm not part of that per se. I'm just trying to learn and see how we can capitalize on that for the future. But there was an idea that the first group thought was fantastic. The third group, no, not so good. That's why you need the different opinions, right? Is everybody comes at it from a different angle. And so maybe we didn't have the right people in the room the first time. So anyway, I think we're going to have quite a number of new products and innovation on the market. But I think that there's going to be the infrastructure is going to take a little bit of time. I told you about those imaging, getting that in is going to be key, and it's going to take a few years to build that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure that we're going to be able to predict in 4 years, but in 10 years, I think that we'll get there. So that's why the 4-year thing threw me for a little bit of a loop, because I do know that there is some specific infrastructure that we need to work around. And that is going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But once we get that, I think it's going to be amazing, because I think there's so much we can do if we can pull all those different entities together.
Right.
And I know that the bioprinting of like the tissues will come too, but again, I think it's a little bit past that 4-year mark.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to, but the smart sensors are there. But it's figuring out what you do with all that data, and then how can you bring that to the next step.
Sure.
But I think we're going to have great connections in 4 years.
Yeah.
I think that our workforce is going to be thriving. I think that our economy is going to be better, and I think that the beginning of that $160 million will just pay off in dividends quite nicely for all of us.
Yeah.
I think yesterday was almost a little bit of a glimpse, of what that can look like. And Ryan kind of mentioned some of the spontaneous connections that were happening just yesterday that we all kind of got to observe. I think the vision is that, and Melissa, you spoke about this yesterday, right? That it's not spontaneous or by accident, but that we have created the type of ecosystem where those connections are almost built, that the bridges are there. And so we can enable those conversations, connections. People know, okay, I have an idea or I have a problem. I know who to call, to help me get started on solving this issue. That's kind of the way I see it. I think the other piece is, really the future generations. I think we have great programs here in Kosciuszko County through the Warsaw schools, the Career Center, certainly what Grace is bringing. Our higher ed system in Indiana is fantastic, but really enabling the future generations in terms of being prepared for these careers and having the skills to build the future of orthopedics and other industries that are going to be coming to Indiana.
I think from our perspective, when I think about 4 years from now, so in the last year and a half, we've established 3 advanced manufacturing academies across the county, and that's serving multiple different school corporations. And so they're just getting their feet on the ground, and we're refining our curriculum. Students are thriving in those environments. We're getting students out of the classroom, on the manufacturing floors, in the engineering studios, learning what the day in the life looks like in this career. And so for me in 4 years, I hope we're looking to hire more faculty and build bigger spaces so we can continue to just build upon what we've established most currently. From an OrthoWorx standpoint, 4 years from now, a lot has happened in the past 4 years. So when you think about, kind of what accelerations have happened in the industry, we've got some new companies coming to town. AutoCam just announced that they're going to be coming to town. There's multiple people at the table as well that want to come to town. So what does it look like differently? I think our ecosystem's even going to get more ingrained. More opportunities are going to come along what we've talked about many times is a US 30 corridor stretching into Fort Wayne. There's lots of organizations that support this industry, and I think there's even more to come, and it's only going to make everybody get better. We're going to have a better offering to the world, and it's going to spur on some innovation like none before. I think one of the cool stories from yesterday I heard about, there was a tour at one of our contract manufacturers, and a couple people on the tour were part of an organization that have an idea and they're ready to find a manufacturer, and they just so happen to be walking through a manufacturer that could probably help them with that. And so there's more to come on what might happen there. But that's the type of thing that we want to have that happen more often than now. We want it to be just a part of our daily routine. And it has been for many years. We just want to breathe some additional life into it.
Yeah. No, it's great.
It's
great.
about that ecosystem, because if you don't know about it, you can't use it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's great.
right.
It's great. Well, and Melissa, I love just kind of the recalibration around the years, right? Truly, because
4 years isn't very long.
you're right.
But you're right. A lot of
comments were-
changes in the last 4
Yes.
years. So I like that perspective.
Yes. But as we've talked about here many times with many other projects, we are talking about a long-term, effort, something that is going to take many, many years. Some projects, even as you talk about US 30, we know things that, maybe things that our kids even help finish solving, right? Like years out. So I love that thought of just, we're leaning in, we're being proactive, but we also know there's going to be a faithfulness and a patience that comes with all of this. So Ryan, as we're talking about this, our future, we're talking about depending on partnerships, collaboration, bold ideas, inviting new people to the table. How does that reinforce just the vision of All in Kosciuszko from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we didn't get here with just Melissa having an idea and going. I mean, she has been the drumbeat that's keeping everybody moving, but everybody's leaning in and bringing their subject matter expertise to the table and offering it up for a better future. And it's not just a better future for any individual. I mean, many of these meetings, a lot of folks are kind of taking their titles and their vision off the table, and it's what can we do collectively together as a team that's going to pave a better path. So, I think as we talk about the Orthopedic Innovation Research Center, we're going to have need for some instructors. Maybe there's some adjunct professor opportunities. We know that there's some people that are approaching retirement age that are subject matter experts that have years of knowledge, decades of knowledge that has helped keep Warsaw the orthopedic capital of the world. And, maybe there's an opportunity for them to teach the next generation. There's opportunities for people to lean in, whether you're a part of a current orthopedic industry, to lean in and how can we help? How can we help host some tours? How can we be a part of a conversation? And then also just community members, leaning in to thinking about how do we build the foundations, the infrastructure, and all that type of stuff for future growth. We've heard it mentioned multiple times. If we're not growing, we're dying. And we have prime opportunities to continue to grow. Yeah. And I don't think that we want to be anything other than what we are. We're Kosciuszko County, Indiana. We do not want to be any other county. We don't want to be a large metropolitan area. We have a secret sauce that everybody loves. When we have people come in town, just like yesterday, I mean, they're just amazed at what we have to offer. Tours around town, walking around Winona Lake, seeing the lakes and all of our natural resources. We have something just wonderful to offer the world. And sometimes we're not the best about telling that story, but I just reiterate, we don't want to become something that we're not. And we just want to continue to grow and continue to double down on what is established in the past by some wonderful people and a wonderful community.
Yeah, great. So you teed up a little bit of my last question. So ladies, we'll end with this. What would you say your encouragement would be to community leaders, business owners, maybe educators who are listening to this and they're saying, I love this. I'm all in. What can I do now? How can I be involved now?
Well, I want to first start with something that Ryan said, and it just made me go back to the very first meetings that I had, and it was with your predecessor, Bob, but it was with Jim Lancaster. It was with a vice president from Lilly, and there were maybe 15 of us around a room, and I couldn't believe we had 2 VPs from very big companies. We had all these other great people from Notre Dame, from Purdue, from IU, and everybody said the same thing. And that, I mean, you talked about Hoosier hospitality and, that were
Hoosiers,
humble
yeah.
and everything. But these great people all were thinking not about themselves, not about their companies, but about how if we just give our intellect, our time, we can do great things together. And they meant it. And that was why I'm putting all this time into this, because I do think we have the right people, and it's just about, getting everything together. So, it just was very inspirational, to be quite honest. And for anybody, this is about, if you are interested, contact us at mskimpact.org is the brand new website where you can get my information. I'm sure Matt can share it, and I'm happy to have it shared, because anybody, I'm sure I can figure out a connection about how you're part of the musculoskeletal ecosystem and how you can be involved. And so it doesn't matter. It's the workforce development side, it's the innovation, it's the research. Somebody came up to me from the real estate market. It is. Companies need to have real estate, so it can be anybody. It's the distributor, it's the marketer, it's the salesperson, it's anybody and everybody. It's the steel manufacturer, it's, literally any segment that intersects. We want to talk to you. We want to understand what you need and how we can help. And then the high tide lifts all boats. So
I love it.
And I would add to that locally, what Melissa, you were just describing of that room, of people, since I have come to Grace and Kosciuszko County, I've seen that here locally, right? With our leaders coming together, developing a shared vision for our community. And that inspired, Ori, and inspired Catalyst Corridor. And those are pretty big initiatives that we need to deliver on over the next few years. So for people locally in the community, there's a lot of work to do with Ori and Catalyst Corridor. So come alongside us and help support all of those great projects for our community.
Excellent. Great. Well, Melissa, Emmy, Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you joining us, and we will certainly stay in touch and track progress, and hopefully later this year we'll have some great news to come back and talk about. Fingers crossed, everybody. Yeah, but thanks so much for joining us for this episode of All in Kosciuszko.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the All in Kosciuszko podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and share this episode with someone who cares about the future of our community. There's so much more to come, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. Until next time, stay connected, stay curious, and stay all in.